I would like to share a story that is related with my previous role. So I was a cloud architect specializing in big data and AI, still within Microsoft, but in my origin country in Poland. And the role was, imagine, consulting. So I was consulting different customers, different partners, like global companies, without mentioning the name. And imagine I had a call. I was asked to consult one AI solution. That time I came out, shared that I'm lesbian within my team, but that was a call with a customer, so like with a partner and a customer. I'm joining, and then they are asking me to design solution that will identify LGBTQI+ people from the videos, because the government would like to know how many those people are present on some protest to take some actions. So I ask, like, why this, dear customer, would you like, what are you going to do with this information, right? Are you going to help those people, to grant them some prize? Then yes, of course I will help you, but maybe no, you want to track them. And they said, of course, we want to know how many of them is there, just to know, to put the proper solution. So if there are 80% of LGBT people, we'll bring soldiers, they will do, cleanup shortly. So I was, on Teams, okay, let me think about that. Let's pause, next topic, please. It take me a couple of, minutes after the call to process what happened. Of course, I didn't quickly realize what was said, but then I quickly reported to my manager, who was that time in France, that this happened, and I think that still we love to design solutions, AI, bring more AI, more and more. At the same time, we have some initial design of responsible AI. That time, it was 3 years ago. Right now, we are talking all the time about responsible AI and frameworks. That time, no, it wasn't that. But I said, I know that this is big customer, it's a government, they're paying a lot, but I think that we shouldn't do that. And he was digging why, of course why, because it's causing more harmful for people. And of course, that time I came out that it touched me because I'm lesbian. So on the protest against the government, for example, anti-abortion or anti-something, whatever our beliefs are, I will be tracked and some force will be used against me. So within a day, I got the reaction, all the chains up to top, that no, this, dear customer, we are not going to do that because it's unethical. Secondly, dear customer, we have to review all the projects that we are doing with you because maybe that was me. Maybe there would be another architect that would agree on that. And then that was the immediate reaction. And thirdly, we started to discuss and train globally everyone about responsible AI, that we are going to verify design, but before designing, we are going to check how the solution is going to be used, pro-humanity or against. So that was the case of AI for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Estera. That was very meaningful. Thank you for sharing this story.
One of my biggest things I wanted was to find a mentor to help me to navigate.
Rina, could you put the mic?
One of my biggest objectives was to find a mentor to help me navigate through the corporate world. That is something they never teach you in school. Who do you go to, how to make friends, especially a person of color. So I went into the Moms Project. It's a website for women who are in tech. They help you get, if you're needing some training and classes and things in Google, so they help you provide that, also mentor. And I got a wonderful mentor. She lives in Canada, but she was a mother and she's a manager. So it was really great. And I really wanted someone who was African American so they could understand some of the issues I go through, but she wasn't. She was a white lady, but she understood. And so we created a relationship, and it was really great because I could understand how I approach people, how relationships are made, some of the biases I would face as African American, and she empathized. So I got some affirmation that I didn't think I would ever get. I got some really good relationship and advice. So that part helped me to navigate, helped me to understand how do you make relationship, how you look, how you spot biasm. It's okay, it's not about you, it's about the other person. Still be able to be on your game plan, even though there was obstacles that you confront. And when I was getting my engineering degree, I got supported by 2 women who did not have a high school education, but they saw so much. They were there to help support me as I was getting my dual engineering degree. And so sometimes the person who knows the least gives you the most help, gives you the most support, gives you the most love. So don't rank it on color, don't rank it on, just rank it on relationship. What kind of relationship have you formed, and what can you get, and what can you give? And so I've had these 2 amazing people, 3 amazing people have been in my corner and be able to support me and talk real. They just put it out there. And I think that's what we need.
Raina, I think I'm going to have a really hard time going after you each time because I just want to sit here and ask so many more questions about your experience, and it's really making me think about, just thank you. I'm going to share an example that just happened this morning. As I mentioned, I work for Amazon, and so we have a paper writing culture at the company, and I've been working on writing a paper for an idea that I have for some time now, and I've just been struggling to understand how do I get an idea that I think is a good idea in front of the right audience, and when is it ready to get in front of that audience? How do I know? And it feels hard, it feels big, it feels like maybe I get shut down. And so to test the waters, I'd kind of been shopping around this paper with some peers, and I said, can you pre-read for me? Can you give me your feedback? I'm trying to improve, I'm trying to learn. And this morning, someone who I had done this pre-read test reached out to me and said, hey, I heard somewhere, somehow, that our Skip is actually interested in this topic. And I think if you reached out right now, it would be a good time to share your idea because it's clearly at the top of their mind. They want to know more about it. And it was it seems like a small thing, but it felt huge to me this morning to just have someone recognize, like, I see that you have an idea, you've put time into developing it, and here's your window to step up, and I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna encourage you to just go for it and support you through it. And I followed up with questions, they helped me answer them, and now I have a meeting scheduled. And so it was such a small thing, but I think it reminded me that being an ally doesn't have to be big, and those things that are small can make such a big difference to someone else, even if you think you're just doing a tiny thing like sending a Slack message about something you heard in the hallway. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for sharing with us these very meaningful stories. So to move on, I'm going to start with Julia. What is an example? What examples have you encountered where an ally has good intentions but bad outcomes? And how have those situations have been corrected?
Ooh, so many to pick from. Recently, I had a manager who, when I interviewed with him, I had mentioned I was looking for bigger work where I wanted to own a project and I wanted to architect it and I wanted to help shepherd it through to launch. And I felt that I was ready for that and that I had almost done that in a number of cases. I had acquired other people's and projects and stuff like that, but I wanted something that was fully mine. And he was like, yeah, I think we have the opportunity for that here. So I joined the company. And a few months later, I got invited accidentally to a meeting and thought, hey, I know I have a great idea. And I put together a proposal on here we can create this series of microservices and we can take this crazy ass excuse my language, monolith that we have, and we can break it up and this is just one step and a great way to start it because it doesn't actually touch all this other stuff. It's sort of a proof of concept and da-da-da-da-da. And he thought it was a great idea, took the proposal up the channel. It got approved by our VP and it came back down. And he announced it to the team, Julia's gonna lead this. Yeah, we can see where this is going. The team was not sold on the idea. They were primarily not sold on me, is what I eventually discovered. I had a one-on-one one afternoon with one of my coworkers, because I had been doing that with a bunch of them, trying to figure out, how does this corporation work? It's a startup, but how do we work? What are the real back channels? And he basically told me, your project will fail. I will insure it. Will not go anywhere even if you finish it. I was like, oh, nice. Okay. Moving on. Well, I didn't know, he didn't know. That was actually his last day at the company. That just happened out of chance. But after this discussion, I went back and looked at a lot of code that the team had been writing and found, sabotage might be a little bit harsh, but literally we had not been all on the same page, and it could easily have been said that we weren't on the same page because there was miscommunication, there was disagreement, there was people who really didn't want to work with me on this. I worked really hard to try all the things we try. Let's give people more say in what the project is. Let's talk to them and find out what their concerns are. I went round and round in circles, and we also lost one of our employees. Somebody found a job and was leaving the team as well. And so we were now perilously understaffed. And so the solution to the problem was not actually my ally at all, my boss, because he was actually quite useless, because he felt that all of this was a reflection on me. So I actually brought to him the fact that I had a friend who was a consultant and had, a team, and we had talked about some ways to be more effective and efficient. And I also talked to our VP, who had greenlighted this project and actually now had some stake in it because he wanted it to succeed. I didn't tell him that there was a little mutiny going on the team, but I did tell him that we were having some resource issues and suggested that I know a friend who has this company, I assume we can't afford them and all, but whatever. So he goes, give me the card. So I gave him the card, and lo and behold, he managed to get funding for it. So we were able to augment my team with 2 and eventually 3 consultants to actually do the bulk of the implementation of the team. So the engineers on the team who really didn't like the idea and weren't working with me but working against me, they were just given other housekeeping tasks to do. And so I, with the help of these consultants, managed to launch approximately on time. And actually we had a really great launch. There was no issues whatsoever, really. And yeah, it was very interesting. It was very hard, but I really appreciated the opportunity that he gave me, even though he really sort of led me to a swamp.
The outcome wasn't what
No, the outcome wasn't what he expected. It wasn't what I expected, but with a little ingenuity and some help from some friends, like people I used to work with who worked at this consultancy.
Some allies.
Allies from outside of the organization were able to come up with ideas and drum up some solutions that we were able to sell and make happen. So it was a different allies that solved my problem, but it was still great.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Crystal, the question would be, what actionable advice do you have for someone who is trying to increase understanding in how to be a genuine ally?
I guess for me, it would just be to sit and talk to people. I think, like someone mentioned earlier, you have no idea, I think it was Shivani who mentioned, you have no idea how a little bit of information really, really goes a long way. A piece of advice, I am sitting on the board of like a computational woman, Black computational women in computational biology, sorry. And I just happened to come across some grant, and I was like, oh yeah, here's a grant you guys should apply to, right? It took literally less than, I wouldn't say a minute of my time. And I was like, here you guys go. And they got it. And it was like the most money they've ever had. They're so excited, right? And so it's just really chatting with people, really like giving them that bit of information, and just really just taking the time. I think another thing that really helped was when I was going from my postdoc to getting into the data science field, I ended up meeting a lot of people through meetups, and they took pity on a postdoc and, and paid for my beers and chatted with me about getting into the field of data science. And those guys white men made a lot of impact on me, because they just sat and chatted with me, and they were like, yeah, you can totally do it, like let's talk about your skill set, ping me if you need some advice. And it didn't require much besides like them chatting with me for 30 minutes to 60 minutes and them being very nice and paying for a beer, but that was it, right? But they made a huge impact on my life, and that's what they had to give to me. So I would just say, like, just reach out, chat with people, be open, and I think it will go much further than you think it will.
And for the allies, like, what would you recommend for the allies to how can approach us, like vice versa?
How to approach. I guess it would be, maybe I'm being too...
Like what actions an ally could do for them to start a relationship with those minorities?
Yeah, okay. I think it would just be to find some commonality. If somebody else has any ideas, that would be great. But I would honestly just think, hey, this person has really cool shoes. Maybe that's something I can start chatting with. Like, start something small. That's how I generally start with relationships at work. Something super small, and then I grow it from there. I think that's how you do it. But if anybody else feels the need to have any other advice,
I think being friendly and kind, right? Really, that's where it starts. And as an ally, I have found that sometimes I have to put my curiosity under the table for a while. Like, literally, I just want to get to meet you or get to meet someone and say, like, or like maybe curious about, so what are you doing, and things like that. But like, it's weird for me to come up and say, how can I help you? What kind of advice do you need? Like, that is not really, I think, helpful when you meet someone. I think in order for an ally to be effective, they kind of have to kind of have a relationship with their target, their friend, this other person, right? And it needs to be more of an even Stevens, right? Like, you need to want help before I offer help. Otherwise, having been on the receiving end of help that I didn't really want, then it means me finding a way to be polite and nice to say, no, thank you, without pissing off my ally. And that can be really tricky.
Anyone has a take of this?
Yeah, I like, I guess to use a PNW term, like, it has to be very, like, organic. And like, you meet someone at a conference, right? And you want to be an ally to them. Start a conversation on something super small, right? Cool shoes, or hey, like, I really this lunch was amazing. Like, I don't know, we're in the PNW, like, are you vegan? I don't know. Whatever that might be, but you start that conversation at a really basic level, and then listen. Listen to like the nuance in the answer, right? When someone says, "Oh, thanks, yeah," and then they continue talking, listen to what they're saying, how they're saying it. Because that provides a lot of context into who the person you are hoping to be allies with is, right? And yeah, I agree, Julia. You have to keep your curiosity. I mean, asking questions is okay, but keeping your curiosity sort of like at a medium, because we're not an encyclopedia, right? Like, you can ask me about Guatemala, but I'm not a historian on Guatemala. But, like, we can talk about, I don't know, something cool to do if you visit, but if you want to talk about, like, the political situations, like, do your own research. What's it like to be Latino? Do the research, read some books. But if you want to talk about, like, how my interactions or what my life is as a Latina in technology, then that we can talk about. But start it off like something super, super organic, something that, like, we have in common, not just like, so I noticed you're brown. How's it like to be Latina? Like, what? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Things concrete. So I will say, I think a good opening question, we're at a conference like this, is what brings you here today? You're not making any assumptions about the person based off of their race, gender, how they present, anything like that. You're just asking, what brings you here? And then that person can then lead conversation. This goes both ways. You're not starting a conversation with someone thinking you're going to be the ally and they need your help. That's a problematic mindset, but it's just about meeting people. And once you have that open-ended question, which is concrete, what brings you here today, listen to the cues that they're putting into that response. Are they here because they're a student and they're looking to meet people? Are they here because they're seeking a job opportunity? Are they a speaker? So hopefully that helps, just one thing.
Do your homework, do the research. Ahead of time, whoever's coming, whatever your passion is, if they have an article that you're deep diving into, you really have a passion, do your homework. And so when you go and approach that person, you can say, wow, I heard you speak about sensors and I'm really into sensors, or I have, some, and you can have a conversation. But do your homework, do the research. Plan ahead of time. When you come to a conference, find out what area you're really interested in. And you might reach out before the conference. Say, hi, I know you're going to be at the conference. I'm really excited to listen to whatever topic I'm excited about. And then when you see them, you have something that establish a relationship, and you guys can talk. And then you can say, hey, can I get a card? And then respond, I really enjoy meeting you. I hope maybe we can continue to correspond. And then you have form a relationship. But deep dive into whatever you are passionate about. You'd be amazed. There are so many people who are passionate about what you are passionate about. So do your homework. It's really important to do your homework. You'll be amazed how many friends. I love being at the airport. I'm from the South, so it's very hard for me to make friends. The hardest part is just not, like, just because if you're in the elevator, don't say anything. People walk you in the elevator, nobody say anything like, good morning. Oh, good morning. How you doing? I'm doing fine. So do your homework. Do the research. What do you like? What really excites you? Why are you in this field? Are you willing to give your all in this particular whatever it is? Because that's what drives you. That's what makes you what you like to do. And then when you reach out, people will come to you, gravitate to you, because it is the same. You share the same interests that they have. So do your homework.
to add my 2 cents. Because I am thinking about happy hours that are coming and another happy hours. And so I'm not just thinking about the conference, but in general, the approach towards allyship for me, it's like kind of how to be inclusive. So sometimes I don't have to talk with someone else because I just feel the energy or just the point is that I accept you, whoever you are, unless you are not harming me. But I'm taking you with everything, what you look and what you are doing, what you are saying. So the point is that we don't have to talk during the happy hours. I would love to, but just be gentle to each other, curious if we can talk. I'm again, part of being inclusive is just to be curious about you, but about everyone. But just let's accept each other, share a human love. In not the romantic way, but in a way of accepting us, like everyone, in the shape that we are.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm going to move with Yvette. What would be the best way that you co-workers could better express a commitment to diversity and inclusion?
That's a super important question, and I've been fortunate in having some really amazing coworkers, and who are committed to diversity and equity, and then of course inclusion. So I guess the whole DE and I. And I think what is most important is their desire or their ability to really put themselves out there while being advocates, right? It's more than just, I'm part of the ERG, right? I go to the meetings once a month and I go to the happy hours. It's more than that. It's setting up fundraisers. It's going to events for nonprofits, right? It's attending conferences. It's advocating with management for funding to host events like this one or other conferences that are centered around DEI, and I think that's the most important thing that you want, or what you would like, or what I would like to continue seeing from coworkers. That advocacy, that desire to take that extra step, not just wear the shirts or put the backgrounds on their team's channel, but really actually do the work.
Thank you, Yvette. We are going to move with Estera. What are some specific ways that you have advocated for change and the successes and challenges that you faced?
That is tough. So to connect that as it was in the past, once the case with Ezra Responsibility happened, I started to form the RRG for GLIM community. So GLIM is LGBTQI+ at Microsoft in Poland. And at the beginning, I created Elias. So I have a RRG. Now I need people. So I talked to some of them, and my colleague joined. So we were just 2, and it was it was spring, and during summer we have a Pride parade in Warsaw. That time it was Pride Warsaw and Kiev because of the war. So a lot of people were going there, a lot of companies, a lot of logos of the companies, but I wanted to be sure that a lot of people within the company will also join this event. So I started with communications, meetings, creating this group, convincing people, let's be vocal, let's discuss that. And at the beginning, that was like honest comments that, yeah, we have a lot of urges, like we have a lot of work, so maybe, yes, I will join, but, everyone said that will join in a Teams event. I could, like Outlook event, I could see that like 200 people is coming. But at the end, I knew that like if half of them will be on this event, it will be a huge success. And during a couple of weeks, we have been fighting, printing T-shirts, convincing people. So the groundwork that to be an ally during that day, so celebrating being different, celebrating diversity, celebrating inclusion, also celebrating happiness, because it's just a happy parade. We have to be there. And there is no excuses like, oh, I have a event. No. Like proper briefing 3 months before you knew that the event is coming. So at the end, there was a group of 70 people that came up. I know that some of them were just at the beginning and they say by picture done and they went home. But the point is that because of this grand work, talking with everyone, convincing that we have to be visible this one day, because it will help us to build the group, the support group. It's important, and you have to be there. So it finished like in a positive way. But a lot of challenges that I think that every group, diverse group, will have to find. But there is a purpose.
Thank you, Rina. How can we invite and maintain more allies into our network?
I think reaching out, getting involved, stating things that may be common interest or common concern, help you to invite allies, help you to create allies, help you to mentor allies. It's all about relationship. I think Maya Angelou said it best. He said, it's not what you say, but how you say it. When I leave you, what do I feel? What impact do I feel on the words that you put out? So it's really important, your words, and how it impact people. So, meaning if you have harsh words and someone come and smack you, I'm sorry, it's just karma. It's karma, people. So having that we're making relationship, that's the most important part of anything working with your coworkers. What kind of relationship? And you can assess. Some people are extroverts, some people are introverts. So you have to meet them at their level. Some people need coaching to bring out what they want to say. So you kind of have to wear a lot of hats, and you have to assess the situation. But the most important part, I will hope you want to leave is something a positive impact for whoever you meet, And a simple hi, how's your day goes a long way. You have no idea how that person will come back and say, hey, how you doing? Or they avoid seeing you because they don't want to say, hi, how you doing? But either way, you have made the first move. It's like playing chess. Somebody got to make the first move. And whatever that second move is, you have no clue, but you have made the first positive move, and that's most important.
For Shivani, as a new mother in tech, what advice would you give to our audience regarding how to help mothers feel supported in the workplace?
Great question. Many thoughts. First, in general, becoming a parent, and we already have not very many women in technology. So the odds that you work with a pregnant person actively are very slim, because it's also a very small phase in life for most people too. You've got like a 10-year window with a coworker, maybe even, and there aren't very many of us. Fortunately now I think partners are a lot more vocal too about the impact it has, and as a demographic, we're all moving up there, and so it's becoming more common. So the odds of interacting with someone who's going through this life phase are getting up there. But what I found was that lots of people that I work with are still very young and very early career. So through no fault of their own, have absolutely zero exposure to a friend group, a peer, anyone who has ever been in the position of being a parent, except for maybe their own parents. And that's the phase in life that they're in. They're recent college grads, and that's totally okay and normal. And so I think, and I was in that boat. I remember being in that boat, and I'm like, I don't understand how hard this is or what the challenges this person are facing are. And so I think the first thing is to, if you're comfortable and you have that relationship with whoever in your life is going through becoming a new parent, ask how they're doing, which is a very basic question. If they're the person who is the pregnant person, they might not be doing very well once you know that they're pregnant. And so it's like just a nice thing to do, to check in on people. And I know it sounds simple, but even as a woman, before I went through this experience, I don't think I really understood. Like, I don't know if I properly supported my pregnant people until I saw them go through it, and other pregnant people around me. And so I hope this helps, and I hope sharing my own ignorance helps too. And then the other thing I think you can do is learn alongside the people that are working with you what the policies in your workplace are to support this person. Ask questions about their plan if they feel open to it. And again, this is very personal, so you have to have that relationship, and you have to guess how things are being recepted back to you. If someone seems closed, don't push, of course, but what I like to encourage other moms in technology to do is, if they're willing, to be as vocal as possible about the experience. If you're someone who's comfortable with it, you're comfortable sharing what your experience is like, then please do share. I think that's what we can do to help our allies learn, because otherwise we're all just kind of poking around in the dark, and it doesn't help if you don't know what someone is going through. So I manage a team. I've been feeling unwell recently, so I told them I've been feeling unwell, for example. It's a small thing, but it's true, and it makes it hard to show up sometimes for a 6:30 a.m. morning with full energy and the enthusiasm that I should have. I'm not going to let my team down, but it's okay to share that you're not at 100%. And then coming back from maternity leave, I really struggled to share how hard it was for me in the moment. And so I think that's a really critical time, is for the birthing person and the non-birthing person, when they're coming back, as a coworker, check in on them frequently. See how they're doing. Look for flags that they are maybe sleep deprived, not doing well. And if you feel comfortable, help advocate for that person to your manager or your peers or whoever. Ask, how can I help? Do you need any support right now? It's a really challenging time for many people for various reasons. Feeding challenges, being sleep deprived is a classic thing, but there's a whole suite of other things that could be going on in the background in terms of what those folks are dealing with returning to work. And so I think those are just a few. And afterwards, if anyone has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them and be kind of an open book.
That was super insightful for people who are about to get pregnant or who are new mothers. Thank you for sharing that. And we are going to do another round for the whole panel. And the question is, what gender-specific challenges, stereotypes, or barriers have you had to overcome during your career? And we start from Julia.
I am a petite Asian woman. I am 5 feet tall, maybe with heels. Actually, no, without heels. But I, for a very long time, looked very, 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 very young. Very young. I had a really hard time being taken seriously and being heard unless someone backed me up. And so if my manager introduced me in the meeting and, people in the room knew who I was and a little bit about my background and why I was there, it was fine. If I showed up and I didn't get good ally support, can I look around the room and say, like, ally support as in, yeah, that's Julia, she knows what she's talking about? Somehow you don't say it explicitly that way, right? Yeah. I had one of the engineers on the first team I worked on call me girl for 2 or 3 months before I called him grandpa because I was so pissed. I don't recommend that. I don't think it was I did not deal with that well. I will be very blunt with you. But it was interesting because I got to know him really well afterwards. We actually had a discussion after that little tiff there. And he was a great guy, and he was really supportive, and I looked like 15, so I get now that I'm 55, I get where he was, right? But that's just not appropriate. And it's always been really challenging for me. That's why I let my hair go gray, because I will have to tell you, like, I still was having a hard time being taken seriously in my late 30s and 40s until I stopped coloring my hair. I don't get it, right? Like, I'm the same person regardless, but unless someone thinks I'm not too young, whatever that means, it was hard. It's interesting now that I'm on the other side of the fence. My oldest is 22. I have worked with a number of coworkers who are my son's age or younger, and I have to stop and remember what it felt like for years and years and years to be treated differently because I looked young, and so people underestimated me. Anyways, yeah, that's on top of being a woman and all the other stuff. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. It's hard to tell what is actually it, but I very much felt obviously this is a hot spot for me, because I'm gonna say,
this is the place to share.
This is a thing that really got to me because I felt unheard. I felt like I had to express things, and then unless Alex, my coworker, actually repeated what I had suggested, the meeting didn't discuss my proposal, right, or my suggestion. But when Alex mentioned it, yeah, everybody would talk about it because he thought it was a good idea. Yeah, I think though I don't experience that really anymore, thankfully.
You overcome it.
I don't know if I've overcome it or whatever it is, but I will say that it's interesting because I've noticed that because of that experience, I am very much more conscious of how I treat my younger coworkers, right? Like, I won't say early career because there's plenty of career changers in this field. But a lot of times, especially with younger people whom I work with, I try really hard to find the way to respect them, but also meet them where they're at so that I have some commonality with them and their current experience. And then remember not to treat them like my kids.
Thank you. And it's the same question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess just thinking back, there are a lot of times, I think too numerous to count. I think one of them was I was giving a talk during my PhD, and I was the only African American during a panel, or not a panel, but it was like a series of talks. And I had a very distinguished scientist come up to me and was like, "Oh, how was it on a diversity talk?" And I was like, pretty sure I was the only Black person there, but okay. So, there was a lot of times when people just dismiss my actions. And I think in terms of just my development and progression through my career, I've also had a lot of things where people are like, try and put me in a box. So honestly, I think my stubbornness has worked out extremely well. If you tell me I cannot do something, I will do it. Like, I had one person in college tell me, I bet you cannot be without coffee for 2 months. And I did it, and it was horrible. And then I said, okay, here it's done. And then the day right after, they said, I acknowledge you're not addicted to coffee because you were able to stay away. I was like, great, and I just chugged a ton. So I have taken that wonderful stubbornness with me to my job. So if somebody says like, oh no, I don't think you can do this, I will do it. So I think that's how I have dealt with it, is just, and it's exhausting, I'll be honest. It's exhausting to do that versus other stuff. Like during my PhD, you know what I did on the weekends besides cook for fun? I took courses, online courses. I taught myself how to code. I went through like extra statistical courses. In the morning, I get up, I sit there and I read a ton of blogs. At night, I sit there and practice a lot of different modeling. Like this is what I do in my free time because I keep getting underestimated, and that's the only way I know how to get around it.
Thank you.
Yeah. There. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of memories or moments where the second guessing, and I think for me, it's always, I think the most triggering perhaps, or the most like upsetting, is when my navigation of language or my code switching is like I guess a shock to people. I was on, at the time I was the national program manager, the national program manager for a nonprofit. And I was speaking with tech companies about our upcoming conference. And I was talking to them about the programs that we ran, the way that we were being more inclusive by teaching some of our programs or some of our lessons in Spanish, and that we had volunteers come to events to translate or speak in Swahili and like different languages for the population of girls that were coming to our events. And one of the presumptive managers of a company that was going to sponsor just sort of made a comment like, oh, well, it's amazing how well your English comes off. When you were mentioning Spanish and you said those words in Spanish, it was just perfect Spanish. And your English, I can't even tell there's an accent there. And it's just so frustrating because I'm bilingual. Well, I'm more than bilingual, but that means that doesn't mean that I'm half-assing language or and it means that I understand that I can communicate in two languages. It doesn't mean that I'm that I can't communicate, and I'm not like something for you to like, oh wow, for you to question. Also, I'm on a national, like I'm speaking to you about a national level conference, and like, why do you think bringing something like this up is appropriate? So I think that is perhaps one of the most frustrating ones of the many, but that, I don't know how to come out of that one. So I'm gonna pass it on over.
You came up excellent.
So I love what you said, as it really very similar in my case, that I studied as a bachelor electrical engineering, knowing that the root, like the background of computer science is electrical engineering, but it was kind of a issue for me that I was feeling that I will never be a good programmer without finishing computer science. At the same time, I started to work at the same, studying full-time and working full-time just to have money to survive. And the bias that I was always hitting was that I'm energetic, nice, but young. I'm too young to like that everyone, like my boss or other colleagues are taking what I'm saying in a serious way. Even though I was working with some like millionaires, doesn't matter. Leading project doesn't matter. Always I was somehow categorized as a geeky girl that can, or kid, that can do coding and let's leave her there. And my strategy was, okay, I will show you. Okay, so for master I would choose computer science. Then I run away from the problem, so I switch corporation to another and another and another. So at the end, I finished like master from computer science, and it was not enough because the same pattern. People are not taking serious what I'm saying. And I was speaking Polish that time, like I'm speaking, but the native language, so I was not making mistakes. And I was asking myself, what I'm doing wrong? What is the problem with me? And maybe, I need PhD. So of course, I signed up for PhD at the best university in my country. I am about to finish that. It took me a lot of years. I started to be gray. I changed the country, and you know what? The problem is the same. Even though I'm reading the year, I'm reading politics, I'm reading, and I'm able to like design product, strategy, go to market, a lot of things. And people are taking those ideas to the extreme that they are taking my slides and removing my name. But problem is the same. And I'm looking still for the answer how to be like heard by bosses and anyone. So I have never been promoted. To get the promotion, I always change the company. That's why 10 years of experience, like 12 companies. But like the process that I was having in my mind is that maybe I'm just too nice to people because I'm a giver. I want to give you. I want to do things for you. And maybe I'm just too nice. Maybe I'm not using, something radical steps. So I did a tattoo, shuriken, that is showing me like a ninja star that I can always be and do something maybe that will be categorized not nice. But maybe that's the way for other people to hear me, that I'm not a kid anymore, and I don't want to be treated as a kid, and I think that like it's not inclusive to categorize by the age, of course. And of course, it's also not the way to say that. But you see the point that we should support each other, not make us and anyone else categorize. And also, the last point I wanted to share is that it's really rare to find a person that will see in us something more than they are. So, for example, the manager is hiring us or the boss is hiring us, and the maximum level of your career is whatever the manager is. And it's really rare to find a leader who will see in you something more and will grow you. So, I'm wishing you finding those people. I'm still looking for them.
Thank you. Rina. The question was, what gender-specific challenges, stereotypes, or barriers have you had to overcome during your career?
What particular gender? There have been a lot, and I'm learning how to pick my battles. Because if you try to slay every battle, you get exhausted. You get burned out. I pray when I go to a new company, please don't be any issues that I have to deal with. But there are going to be issues. And there are going to be situations that you may have to draw the line in the sand. Just be true to yourself, I've learned that assess the situation, assess the culture, try to find people who will have your back, but pick your battles, because you can't fight every battle. You'll be frustrated at yourself. I've had imposter syndrome. I'll look at my resume like, I've done this, I did that. Why am I here and I've done all this? If I was a man, a white man, they'd think I've been walking on water. So learn how to pick your battles. and find people that you can talk to who as a sounding board. You are great. I'm great. We're good people. We're good at what we do. Sometimes you pick the wrong person to give you affirmation. If you know you're seeking that person, he's never, ever going to give you affirmation, stop it. You ain't going to get it, no matter how good you are. Find the person that gives you the affirmation that you need. Keep that person like that, and give that person, another person, they need affirmation from you. Be truthful, but give them affirmation. That's what fills up the soul and helps you ready for another day of battle. But pick your battles, because if you don't, you'll be so bitter, so burned out, that you will not want to have anything to do with anybody. So pick your battles.
Early in my career, I ended up in a position where I was started to get a lot of glue work, which is work that even as a technical woman you're doing to hold your team together, but you're not getting credit for that work. It's extra things. It's things around maybe helping schedule meetings or bringing groups of people together, and it takes away time from your technical deliverables, and you get no credit for it. And so I fell into this trap, but being early career, I kind of threw myself into it. I just want to do a good job. I want to make sure my manager thinks I'm doing a good job, and I'm going to carry the full load of all of the things, the glue work, the technical work, all of the work. And so this, I think, was, I obviously don't know, can't say for sure, but I feel it was due to my age and my gender that I was being asked to do those things. So one of the things I try to do now that I lead a team is ensure that if I'm asking someone to do something, that I'm clearly able to make a value statement for it and that they get credit for that work. Regardless of what it is, it's a SIM ticket that goes onto their board, because I need to be able to say that they put time into it. It's time that they got through their work to do it. Sometimes we all have to work extra hours, and that's okay. It's not about that, but it's about saying, I see that you were given something to do, it has value, and we can make a value proposition for it, and this is how I'm going to use it to advocate for you later. It could be around schedule a meeting for the team to accomplish a specific purpose. But what was the purpose of that meeting? It wasn't that your value was that you scheduled it. Your value is that you facilitated the discussion. You thought about what ideas needed to be brought to the board. You wrote the doc afterwards. You did something, and it matters, and I'm going to pull that together when it comes to time for your promotion. I'm going to put a full package together that helps show the complete depth of your work and how you support this organization. So that's one thing, and I know lots of people here spoke about outside of gender issues and challenges they've faced. I remember being at a Women in Tech conference in Portland, Oregon, and this was, again, early in my career before I landed my first job, and I'm sitting at the career fair. I sit down in front of a woman who's a recruiter, and she looks at me, and the first question she asks me is, "What's your visa status?" And it was just this moment where I realized that someone doesn't see me the way I see myself. I'm like, I was born here in Portland, Oregon, the hospital 2 blocks from where this conference is happening. Like, I'm a citizen, I'm American. Like, it just, and in the moment I was young and flustered, and I remember I just wrapped up the conversation and I walked away feeling so confused. And I think those moments, sometimes when you're the person delivering that, you don't quite realize the impact it has, but it shook me for a week, feeling like, oh my God, like I don't think other people see me the way I see myself, and it's shocking. And I get it. I understand where maybe that unconscious bias comes from, but it doesn't make it less impactful to the person experiencing it either.
So thank you, everyone. With this, we conclude our questions for the panel.